For my open source project, I worked on a Firefox browser extension called Offline QR Code that converts any text into a QR code. Here's the GitHub walkthrough. So this is the GitHub walkthrough of the offline QR code extension that I'll be contributing to. So you see here first there's a lot of guideline files like readmes, licenses, contributing guidelines. So the three main folders are assets, scripts, and source. So source right here contains all the source code. So in here there's going to be the test, there's going to be the pop-up, which is basically the main top level files for this. Here's the manifest.json, which is going to handle all the display stuff and permissions related to the browser. Next we go to the scripts thing, and the scripts folder has some manifests, so for developers and for users. And then we go to assets, and assets is just a lot of files with images that will be used for the QR code. Here is my contribution walkthrough. So other contributors in the past have added a function that allows a QR code here, the extension is shown here, to be created off of any text that is selected on a website. So right now I'm going to check this option to demonstrate its functionality. As you can see, the selected block of text is being generated into a QR code. Now I will demonstrate my contribution, which is this function, to use the clipboard content when opening a pop-up. So the hierarchical structure of the different content that is used is that first, if any content is selected, like this that I demonstrated earlier, it will be used to generate the QR code. Secondly, if nothing is selected and this checkbox is checked, it's going to use whatever is on the clipboard as the content to be made into the QR code. So right now I'm going to put the word Florida onto the clipboard. Now it is on the clipboard, and as you can see, the word Florida is here. So now I will try this again, but without the clipboard content option being checked. So without it being checked, by default, it is going to use the URL. So right now this URL is about add-ons, and right here the URL is Wikipedia. So if something is selected, it automatically uses the selected text. If this option is checked and there is something on the clipboard, then it will use whatever is on the clipboard. And if there is nothing selected and this option is not checked, it will by default use the URL of the tab. This is a static code analysis of my contribution. For my contribution, I had to give permission from the user to access the clipboard content. So this was done under the manifest.json. I added a new permission. And then I documented that permission in the permissions.readme. And then for the actual code changes, I added a method for getting the clipboard content, and then I added a section of an if statement to preference using the clipboard content versus using the URL of the tab or the selected text. And then I had to add an option under the preferences in Firefox browser to allow the user to select whether they wanted to use clipboard content or not. And then right here in one of the default settings, I set the default setting of that option to false. A security hotspot is the permissions that are required from the users, listed right here in the manifest.json. I resolved this by properly explaining why I was getting permissions and allowing the user to change whether they wanted to use permissions or not by documenting it in the README and putting it as an option that the user can access. An unexpected problem I encountered was when I ran into errors while trying to build and test the cloned repo. To solve this, I used the current in-production working version to do testing. Something that worked out in my favor was that the issue guidelines were very detailed. As a result, I was able to accomplish the entire task without asking for guidance. Something that did not work was when I tried to add a user preference option without setting its default value. I fixed this by adding a default value. From this project, I learned how to create a browser extension with JSON, JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. In the future, I will spend more time on building and testing my changes.